Have you ever felt like you're being watched? Not just a passing glance, but a deep, invasive stare that pierces through your very soul? I did. And it all started with a cozy cabin getaway that turned into a living nightmare. My partner and I had been planning this trip for months, a secluded cabin in the mountains away from the chaos of city life. The listing promised tranquility, scenic views, and complete privacy. Upon arrival, the cabin was everything we hoped for, rustic charm with modern comforts. But there was something off, a subtle unease that neither of us could quite place. Our first night was peaceful. We cooked dinner, played board games, and enjoyed the silence. But as we settled into bed, I noticed a faint blinking light coming from the bookshelf across the room. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but once seen, impossible to ignore. Curiosity turned to dread as we investigated the blinking light. Behind a row of books, we found what looked like a smoke detector, but upon closer inspection, it was a hidden camera, aimed directly at the bed. Our sanctuary had been violated. Shock gave way to anger and fear. We scoured the cabin, searching for more hidden devices. In the bathroom, living area, even the kitchen, nothing. Just that one camera, silently recording our most intimate moments. We felt exposed, betrayed, and unsafe. We contacted the local police, who arrived promptly. They took the device and assured us they would investigate. The officer mentioned this wasn't the first report of such incidents in the area. The thought that others had suffered the same invasion of privacy was chilling. We left the cabin immediately, cutting our vacation short. Back home, sleep eluded us. Every creak of the house, every shadow, felt like eyes watching. The sense of safety we once took for granted was shattered. A week later, the police contacted us. The camera contained footage of multiple guests, all unaware they were being recorded. The cabin owner was arrested, charged with multiple counts of invasion of privacy. Justice, perhaps, but the scars remained. This experience taught us a harrowing lesson. Even in places meant for relaxation and escape, vigilance is necessary. Hidden dangers can lurk behind the most innocuous facades. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. If you're planning a getaway, be cautious. Check for hidden devices, trust your instincts, and prioritize your safety. What happened to us was a nightmare, but awareness can prevent it from happening to you. Stay safe. Ever checked into a motel room and felt something was off? Maybe it was the stale air, the flickering light, or an unshakable feeling of being watched. For me, it was the smell. A sickly sweet odor that led me down a path of horror I could never have imagined. I had been driving for hours, the Florida sun beating down on my car as I searched for a place to rest. Spotting a modest motel with a vacancy sign, I decided to stop for the night. The exterior was unremarkable, faded paint, a few palm trees swaying in the breeze, and a neon sign that buzzed intermittently. The receptionist handed me the key to room 103 with a curt nod. As I walked to my room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air was thick, and the silence was deafening. Opening the door, I was greeted by a dimly lit room with outdated furnishings. The bedspread was a gaudy floral pattern, and the carpet had seen better days. But it was the smell that hit me first, a cloying, metallic scent that made my stomach churn. I tried to ignore it, attributing it to old carpets or mildew. I opened a window, hoping fresh air would help, and began unpacking my things. As I prepared for bed, the odor seemed to intensify. Unable to bear it any longer, I decided to investigate. I checked the bathroom, the closet, even under the bed. Nothing. Finally, I lifted the mattress. What I saw made my blood run cold. The underside of the mattress was stained with large dark patches, undeniably blood. The sight was so shocking that I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my suitcase. Heart pounding, I rushed to the front desk, demanding an explanation. The receptionist looked up, seemingly unfazed, and said, "Oh, it's just an old wine spill. Nothing to worry about." His nonchalant response only heightened my unease. I returned to my room, unsure of what to do. Sleep was out of the question. In an attempt to distract myself, I turned on the TV. A local news segment caught my attention. A report about a woman who had died under suspicious circumstances in a motel room, room 03, my room. The report mentioned that the death was still under investigation, but foul play was suspected. My heart raced as I realized the gravity of the situation. That night, every creak and groan of the building set me on edge. Shadows seemed to move on their own, and the oppressive atmosphere made it hard to breathe. I kept the lights on, too afraid to close my eyes. At one point, I thought I heard whispers, faint, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to come from beneath the bed. I dared not look. As soon as dawn broke, I gathered my belongings and left without checking out. The receptionist watched me from the window, a slight smirk on his face. I drove away, vowing never to return. Weeks later, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The blood, the whispers, nightmares plagued my sleep, and the smell seemed to follow me. I began to question my sanity, so I dug deeper, found a blog post buried on some local true crime forum. A woman had rented room 103. She'd called 911, screaming that something was under the bed. When police arrived, they found her dead, but not from wounds, from fear. Her face frozen in a silent scream. And the mattress? The same one I slept on. I still smell that sweetness sometimes, in my own apartment. And last night, I woke up to find blood seeping from under my bed. I haven't lifted the mattress. I won't. And I hope you never smell it too. I fled my apartment, never to return. If you ever find yourself in a motel room with a strange odor, trust your instincts. Some stains can't be cleaned, and some spirits refuse to rest. If you like these horror stories, please like and share this video, and subscribe to the channel for more true horror stories. I bolted out of the house, barefoot and breathless, the icy night air slicing through my lungs. Behind me, the door creaked shut on its own. My heart pounded like a war drum as I sprinted down the deserted street, the looming silhouette of the house shrinking behind me. I didn't stop until I reached the main road, where the distant glow of headlights signaled salvation. I flagged down a passing car, my hands trembling, my voice hoarse. I had nothing with me. No phone, no wallet, no shoes. But I was alive. And I vowed never to return to that house. Just a week earlier, I had arrived at the house, suitcase in hand, seeking a quiet place to stay while I settled into my new job. The listing on the rental app described it as a charming, spacious home with a friendly host. Mr. Thompson, an elderly gentleman with a warm smile and a firm handshake, greeted me at the door. The house exuded an old-world charm, with antique furniture, ornate rugs, and the faint scent of lavender lingering in the air. He showed me to my room, a cozy space with a large bed, a writing desk, and a window overlooking the garden. Everything seemed perfect. That night, I settled into bed, the house enveloped in a comforting silence. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought I heard faint creaking noises, like someone walking slowly down the hallway. I dismissed it as the house settling and allowed sleep to take me. Over the next few days, I began to notice odd things. My belongings seemed slightly moved, and I would wake up feeling like I wasn't alone. One morning, I found the door to my room slightly open, even though I was sure I had closed it the night before. The sense of being watched grew stronger with each passing day. Determined to find answers, I started inspecting the room. Tapping along the walls, I noticed a hollow sound behind the wardrobe. Moving it aside, I discovered a small, concealed door. It led to a narrow crawl space filled with old blankets and a musty smell. Someone had been sleeping there. I decided to set up a security camera in my room to catch any intrusions. That night, I pretended to sleep, keeping one eye slightly open. Hours passed, and then around 3 a.m., the hidden door creaked open, and Mr. Thompson crawled out, standing silently at the foot of my bed, watching me. He stood over my bed for 3 full minutes, just watching me sleep. Then he leaned in, whispered something. I couldn't hear it. Then he crawled back into the wall, and it sealed shut. I didn't wait for sunrise. I packed what I could, quietly. But as I turned the knob to leave, I heard the wall creak open behind me. Thompson's voice, "You weren't supposed to see that." I ran, didn't look back. I went to the cops, showed them the footage. They searched the house, found the crawl space behind the wall. Blankets, water bottles, old food. He'd been living in the walls for months, maybe longer. But Thompson? He was gone, vanished. I moved far away. New job, new city, new locks. But sometimes I still hear soft footsteps at night, feel eyes on me. And last week, I found a hole behind my bedroom mirror, big enough for someone to crawl through. So if you're ever renting a room, check the walls, because some hosts, they never leave, and some never plan to. You know how most horror stories begin with someone ignoring the signs? Yeah, that was us. It was winter. January, snow piled high along the sidewalks of downtown Toronto. My best friend Marcus and I had just flown in for a weekend music festival. Hotels were crazy expensive, so we booked a cheap rental home instead. A quaint old Victorian place tucked between more modern duplexes. Seemed perfect. From the outside it looked harmless, quiet. A red brick house with ivy frozen in place along the siding, a sagging wooden porch, and snow crusted on the edges of the steps. One of those places that makes you feel like time's been paused inside it. We pulled up late, maybe 9 p.m. The street was silent, the sky above almost purple from the city's light pollution reflecting off the snow. We grabbed our bags and trudged inside. And that's when I felt it. It hit me the second we stepped over the threshold. The air changed. Heavier, still. The kind of stillness that doesn't feel like peace, but tension, like the house was holding its breath. The place wasn't dirty, just aged. Wood floors creaked under every step, and the wallpaper was the kind of yellow that used to be white. We explored the house, tossing our stuff into the upstairs bedroom. One bathroom, one small kitchen, and a narrow hallway that led to a locked white door. I tried the knob out of habit, locked, but what stood out wasn't the lock, it was the chain latch on the outside. I called out to Marcus, "Hey, this door's locked from our side." He peeked over my shoulder. Probably just the basement. Old houses have weird setups. He wasn't wrong. But still, why lock your own basement shut from outside? I stared at that doorknob longer than I needed to. Something about it just felt off. We laughed it off, cracked open some beers, put on music, tried to shake off the weird energy. For a little while we did. That night around 2:30 a.m. I shot awake. No idea why. I lay there in the dark, heart thumping. Then I heard it, a low, steady thudding sound, rhythmic like someone hitting wood. It was faint, but real. I sat up in bed, straining to hear. It wasn't the pipes. It wasn't the heating. It was coming from below us. Thud, thud, scrape. My skin went cold. The only thing underneath us was the locked basement. I slowly walked out into the hallway. Marcus was already there, standing perfectly still in the dark. His eyes met mine. "You hear that too?" he whispered. We both listened. Thud, scrape, then silence. A silence that wasn't empty. It was waiting. We stood there for minutes, barely breathing. Then we slowly stepped toward the basement door. The closer we got, the colder it felt. I'm not exaggerating, it felt like standing in front of a freezer. Marcus reached for the doorknob again, still locked. He knocked, half joking, and something knocked back. 3 loud bangs, so hard they rattled the door. We both screamed and ran back upstairs like kids, slammed the bedroom door and shoved a chair under the knob, like that would stop anything. Neither of us slept that night. We lay there, fully dressed, lights on, listening, but nothing else happened. The next morning, we didn't talk about it. We just knew we heard the same thing. We grabbed coffee at a cafe around the corner, trying to pretend everything was normal. But as we walked back, this older woman, maybe mid-70s, was shoveling snow off her steps. She looked up and stared at us, not in a friendly way, not even curious, just serious. "You boys staying in the Dawson house?" she asked. I nodded slowly. She sighed. "People don't stay there long." Marcus asked her why. She didn't answer directly, just said, "Basement's never been right. Man used to live there, vanished 5 years ago. Right down in that basement." My stomach dropped. She continued, "Only thing they ever found were his shoes. Sitting right outside the basement door, both shoes, laces still tied." We didn't respond, just stood there. She looked at me dead in the eye and said, "If you hear it knocking, don't knock back." That night, neither of us could pretend anymore. Around midnight, we both sat on the couch, lights off, eyes locked on that basement door. The house was quiet, still. Then it started. Thud, thud, scrape. Then something new, a whisper, faint, just beneath hearing. I couldn't get out the words. Marcus stood up. "I'm opening it." "No, man," I said. "Don't, just leave it." But he was already grabbing a screwdriver. "Whatever's down there, I want to see it. I need to know." I should have stopped him. I should have grabbed my bag and walked out. Instead, I helped him pick the lock. The lock clicked. The doorknob turned. The door creaked open an inch. Cold air rushed out like breath from a crypt. We aimed our flashlights down the stairs. The light barely reached the bottom. Old wood steps vanished into black. And then something moved. A figure. Crawling slowly up the stairs. Not walking. Crawling. Backwards. Its arms bent the wrong way. Its head was tilted at a grotesque angle. The skin was gray, mottled, stretched tight across its limbs like dried leather. And then it stopped and looked at us, except it didn't have a face. Just smooth, featureless skin. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, just skin. Then it started moving faster, crawling upward. We slammed the door shut and shoved the chair back under the knob. Bam! Bam! It hit the door again and again. We didn't speak, didn't breathe, and then it stopped. The silence returned, but not a calm silence, a coiled one. We stayed up until daylight, packed our things, left without a word. I reported the house to the rental company, told them the door was broken, told them someone might have broken in. But when they checked, they said there was no basement listed on the property. The blueprints didn't show one. I asked if the neighbor was still around. They told me there was no woman living in that house. That address had been empty for years. A week later, I got a text. No name, just a message. They're hearing it again. I've tried to convince myself it was all in my head, that maybe we imagined it. But I saw it. Marcus saw it. Whatever's behind that door, it's still there, and it's waiting for someone else to open it. So if you ever rent a house and you find a locked door that's not supposed to be there, don't open it. Because some things don't want to be found. And some things, once you let them out, never go back in. Do you believe in doppelgangers? Not the Hollywood kind. Not some quirky twin who looks like you. I mean a perfect Sinister replica. One that watches you, waits for you, and sometimes tries to take your place. What if I told you I met mine? In a mirror. In a place where there shouldn't have been anything behind that glass, but bricks and something else, something that shouldn't have existed. ever. This is not a story I enjoy telling, but I need to tell it, because sometimes they don't stay in the mirror. It was supposed to be a solo escape. I booked an old Airbnb townhouse in Edinburgh. Quiet street, cobbled stones, heavy fog in the evenings. It was perfect. A 200-year-old house with creaky floors, fireplaces in every room, and that sort of damp chill that seeps into your bones even with the heat on. The house was beautiful, though. Timeless, like it hadn't changed since the 1800s. Except for one thing. The mirror. There was a tall, ornate mirror mounted on the wall outside my bedroom. It didn't reflect the hallway exactly right. It looked deeper, like there was more space behind me than there should have been. My first night was uneventful at first. I made tea, read by the fireplace. But when I went to bed and passed the hallway mirror, I stopped cold. It looked like someone had just walked past behind me. I turned fast, nothing. The house was still. But in the mirror, it looked like the hallway was longer. I leaned in. It was faint, but I thought I saw a figure standing way in the back, still, watching. I spun around again. No one. When I turned back to the mirror, the figure was gone. The next morning, I ran my hands around the mirror's edges. It didn't budge, but something was off. I knocked on the wall beside it, solid. Then on the mirror itself, hollow. I searched the house. Behind the mirror was supposed to be a stone wall. But in the old basement, behind dusty storage boxes, I found a sealed crawl space, bricked up tight, newer bricks, maybe 50 years old. That's when I noticed something chilling. The back of the mirror aligned perfectly with that wall. I wasn't seeing a reflection. I was seeing into something else. That night I avoided the hallway, but I had to use the bathroom right across from the mirror. I kept my eyes down. I didn't look at it. I didn't want to. But as I stepped out, something made me stop. I glanced up, and there she was. Me, but not me, standing just behind the glass, wearing the same clothes, hair the same, face the same, except she was smiling. Not a friendly smile, a cruel one that said, "You don't belong here anymore." I screamed. I backed away, and she mirrored my every move, until I turned and ran. When I looked again, she was gone. I couldn't sleep. The next day I called a local paranormal group I found online. They arrived the same evening, 2 older men and a younger woman named Sophie, who claimed she'd seen things like this before. They brought devices, EMF meters, thermal cams. When they scanned the mirror, the temp dropped by 10 degrees. Sophie looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "This isn't a regular mirror. It's a 2-way, but not for people." She looked uneasy. It was used in rituals, spirit rituals. They believed mirrors were portals, and sometimes the other side looks back. They stayed overnight. Around 2 a.m., the EMF meter spiked. We followed it to the basement. Sophie lit a single candle. The light flickered wildly. She whispered, "She's here." The bricked-off crawl space began to groan. We all heard it, like something behind it was shifting, breathing. One brick slid out and hit the floor. Inside was a small, perfectly preserved room, like a ritual chamber. Symbols on the walls, charred candles, a cracked hand mirror lying in the center of a chalk circle, and then a whisper. My voice, but not from me. "You let me out." They sealed the crawl space again, but it wasn't enough. The next night, she came through. I woke up to the sound of footsteps. I crept to the hallway, and there she was, standing in front of the mirror, this time not in it. She turned around, same face, same clothes, but her eyes completely black. She lunged. I ran. She chased me, mimicking every scream I made. It was like watching myself in a nightmare. Sophie yelled from the stairs, began chanting something. The doppelganger froze, screamed, a sound that didn't belong in this world, and vanished in a flash of black smoke. The mirror shattered. I moved out that night. I never looked back. The Airbnb was delisted shortly after. I still don't know what she was. A spirit? A demon? Me from another reality? But sometimes late at night I still feel like someone is watching me from behind a mirror. I've covered every mirror in my apartment now, just in case. Because I've learned something. Mirrors don't just reflect. Sometimes they remember, and sometimes they invite. So if you ever see yourself smiling when you know you're not, run. Have you ever walked into a place and felt like someone was watching you? Not from across the room, not from the outside, but from inside the very walls you're standing in? Because that's exactly what happened to me and my friends in Oregon. We rented a beautiful old Airbnb cabin in the woods, secluded, quiet, perfect for a weekend away from everything. But we weren't alone, at least not at first. It was late afternoon when we pulled up. Me, Tyler, Jess, and Amber. The place looked like something from a postcard. Log walls, wraparound porch, a fire pit outside. The host met us on the porch. Friendly older woman, said her name was Karen. She smiled, but something felt off, like her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She handed us the key and casually mentioned, "Oh, by the way, there's another guest, a solo traveler. He checked in last night. He's in the upstairs room." I asked if we'd be sharing the space, and she just shrugged. "Not really. He keeps to himself. You probably won't even notice him." Inside, the place was cozy. Worn couches, a fireplace crackling in the living room, antique decor. The staircase creaked as we walked up to choose our rooms. But as we passed the upstairs hallway, I felt it, like someone was standing just out of view. Jess stopped and whispered, "Did you hear that?" It sounded like soft footsteps above us. But there was no attic. That night, we stayed up late, drinking wine and playing cards. But every now and then, we'd all pause. Footsteps overhead, slow, uneven. We'd glance at each other, nervous smiles pretending it didn't bother us. But it did. Tyler even joked, "Hope the upstairs guy isn't some weirdo." I laughed, but deep down, I was wondering the same thing. Morning came. Jess and Amber made breakfast. Tyler and I decided to check out the trails behind the cabin. Before we left, I noticed something weird. No one had heard a sound from the upstairs room since late last night. No door opening, no footsteps. When we got back that afternoon, curiosity got the best of us. We went upstairs. We knocked on the door, nothing. So we opened it. The room was cold, way colder than the rest of the house. A single window, bed made, but there were signs someone had been staying there. A black duffel bag in the corner, a journal on the nightstand, clothes folded on the chair, but everything had a layer of stillness, like no one had touched it for days. Tyler picked up the journal. His face turned pale. "Dude," the entries were written in shaky handwriting. "Something's wrong here. I hear them downstairs, but they don't know I'm here. They never see me. I don't think I can leave." The last entry was dated the day before we arrived. That's when I got this horrible feeling. What if this person never left? What if they were still here? We ran down and asked Karen, the host, about it. Her smile dropped. "What are you talking about?" "The guy upstairs. You said he checked in last night." Her eyes narrowed. "I didn't say that." I remember freezing. My skin crawled. "You were the first to arrive," she said slowly. "There's no one else here." That night, none of us slept. Every creak made us jump. At 3:14 a.m., I woke up suddenly. No sound, just pressure. Then, from the hallway, I heard the stairs creaking, one slow step at a time, coming down. In the morning, Jess had an idea. She'd left a GoPro recording in the hallway. We huddled around her laptop. At 3:14 a.m., we watched the feed. Nothing at first. Then, a shadow appeared. Not walking, crawling, out of the bedroom, slowly down the hall, toward the stairs. But when the shadow passed in front of the camera, it looked straight into the lens. We packed up in less than 10 minutes. But Amber, she forgot her phone. She ran back in. She never came out. We searched the whole cabin, screamed her name. She was gone. Her bag, her jacket, even her footsteps, gone, like she had never existed. Later that night, Tyler got a call. It was Amber's number. He answered. Static. Then a whisper. I hear you downstairs, but you don't know I'm here. The line went dead. We never saw her again. And to this day, I wonder, did we stumble into something that wasn't meant for us? Or did it choose us the moment we walked through that door? If you're ever in the woods and you're told someone else is already inside, leave. Don't ask questions. Don't go upstairs. And never ever ignore the sound of someone watching you from the dark. Because sometimes the guest never leaves. They just wait for someone new.